everyone, it's Tara. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are here with the board game book tag. This tag was created by Grace at Beautiful Bookworm, and she tagged me in her video. I don't even remember when she created this. Thank you so much, Grace, for tagging me in this. I love looking at your board game collection while I watch your videos, and I love playing board games, and this is just such a fun, great idea, so I'm really excited to get to this. So what Grace did is she picked, I think she picked 8 board games and created questions or themes around the concept of that board game. So let's get into it. Question number 1 centers around the board game Settlers of Catan or Catan. That board game is considered a gateway board game because it kind of leads people down this more strategy board game path. It definitely did for me. So since Settlers of Catan is considered a gateway board game, question number 1 is a book that introduced you to a new genre. And for that, I chose Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I read this probably 6 or 7 years ago for a book club, and it was not anything that was on my radar. I kind of, up until that point, steered clear of sci-fi, fantasy, that entire section of the bookstore. It just didn't seem like anything I would be interested in. I read this book and absolutely loved it. I then proceeded to read the rest of the trilogy, and I attribute my minimal interest in fantasy to reading Mistborn, because up until then I just assumed fantasy was too complex for me, just not something I would enjoy. But Mistborn kind of opened my eyes to that. Question number 2 centers around the board game Balderdash, which is a game of silly facts. So the question is to name a book that was silly or funny, but also taught you something. And for that, I'm going with The Martian by Andy Weir. This is another book that I read for that same book club. Again, totally not a book that I would have ever picked up on my own, which is why I love book clubs. I remember, I read this a while ago as well. I remember laughing out loud at some of the things Mark Watney said, because he was just very blunt to the point, crap, but not crap, another word. Just matter of fact, and he was a funny character. But I also learned a lot about science and space. Question number 3 is centered around the board game Smallworld, which is a game in which multiple armies of different races and types battle it out. You have zombies and I think trolls and dwarfs. It's a fun game. I really enjoyed it, and I actually want to purchase it. We've only played it with a couple of our friends. I want to own it for myself. It's a lot of fun. Anyways, so the question for Smallworld is a book with epic fight or battle scenes. And for that, I'm choosing Malice by John Gwynne, or really the entire Faithful and the Fallen series. This entire series is just an epic battle between good and evil, and the fight scenes in this are pretty intense. You have giants, bears, wolves, all sorts of creatures battling it out. You have, the main characters, the good versus evil of them battling it out. So many epic scenes in these books. Really enjoy reading them. They keep you engrossed. You're just oh my gosh, that just happened in this battle. So really epic battle scenes in this series. Question number 4 centers around the game Sheriff of Nottingham, which is a bluffing game in which you are trying to smuggle banned goods into Nottingham past a checkpoint. So you have to kind of bluff and lie about what is in your satchels. It's a really fun game as well. I actually just played it earlier this spring with John and his mom, and I'm excited to play it again. I stink at like bluffing games because I'm not a good liar, which is a great quality to have in life, but not a great quality to have while playing games based on lying. So the question is, what is a book that you have read with an epic like heist? And for that, I mean, I have two. The first one is Six of Crows, which is probably one of the more popular books about heists here on BookTube. So I have read this, enjoyed it, hoping to get to Crooked Kingdom soon. But honestly, I haven't read a lot of books with like heists as the main event. The only other book I've read is Janet Ivanovich and Lee Goldberg's book, The Heist, which, you know, by the title, you can tell it's about a heist. This follows FBI agent Kate O'Hare and con man Nicholas Fox, and they are forced to work together because Nick has struck a deal with Kate's bosses in the FBI to work together to capture even worse con men and criminals than Nick himself is. And in this book, you follow Kate and Nick as they try to con another criminal. I think his name is Derek. Yeah, Derek, who is an investment banker who is stealing millions of dollars from his clients. And so they try to con him into being captured. Question number 5 centers around the board game Monopoly, which I feel like most people have played. In Monopoly, it's a property trading game where you pay rent, pay utilities. It kind of resembles real life. So the question is to name a book that kind of resembles your life in some way. Like it can be like the character has your same job or it's set in your same town, something like that. So for this question, I chose 2 books. The first is the Babysitter's Club series. I chose this because the Babysitter's Club series is set in Stony Brook, Connecticut. And Stony Brook, Connecticut is kind of like a small town where not a lot like happens. And that kind of perfectly describes my town. I also live in Connecticut, and I live in a town where not a lot happens. We're not in the news. You don't hear a lot about us. Like, we just kind of exist. And then I also chose Beach Read by Emily Henry, which I read earlier this month. And I loved this book. And one of the main reasons why I loved it is the main character, January. I think January and I have very similar senses of humor. I was cracking up throughout this book at some of the things that January said. Yeah, I loved January and just I found a lot of myself in her. Question number 6 is about the board game 7 Wonders. And in 7 Wonders, you are trying to build one of the 7 wonders. So the question for 7 Wonders is to name a book with epic world building. And for that, I do want to mention Malice, but I also have to mention Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I love the school. I love the world. I love the tavern in this book. Like the story that Kavoth is telling, I think like it's a fantastic world. It's a world that I want to visit. Number 7 is Pandemic, which is a cooperative board game, meaning you are playing as a group against the board. You're not playing against the other players, in which you are trying to eradicate disease, which is very pertinent right now. It's a lot of fun. It's actually one of my favorite games. I first played it with my brother and sister-in-law and John. It's a very hard game to win. Like, there's only one way to win and like many ways to lose this game, but it's a lot of fun. So since you are playing as a team, the question for Pandemic is to name like a book that has like an epic friend group. So there's the obvious choice being Harry Potter. Harry, Ron, and Hermione are an epic group of friends. But I also want to say Cozy Mysteries, like the Hannah Swenson series, They have such good friend groups in them. Like the Hannah Swenson series, you come to like love and care about all of the friends that Hannah Swenson has. Her sisters, Andrea and Michelle, her partner Lisa, Norm, Mike, like her mom, like you really get to know the town and the friends that Hannah has. And I think that all cozy mysteries have that same structure of you really get to know the characters, which is why I continue to read them. And question number 8 is about the board game Ticket to Ride, which is the only game on this list that I have not played. John has played it though, I'm pretty sure. So Ticket to Ride, from what I understand and what Grace said in her video, is a game in which you are trying to like connect railroads across the country. So the question is to like name a book that kind of took you on a journey. So I have 2 books for this one as well. First off is Misery by Stephen King. I mean, you can see actually in both of these books like how many tabbies there are. So Stephen King's Misery, it was like an emotional like journey for me. Like as far as the like basic plot of this is like this author gets in an accident and is rescued by like this like fan of his work, and she is a nurse that is trying to heal him but isn't happy with the ending of a series that he wrote, and basically kidnaps him until he rewrites the ending of this series to be something that she likes. And girl gets a little crazy, and just every time she like did something else to this author, I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Like, so it took me on a ride. But I also want to say Scythe by Neil Shusterman was probably, it's probably up there as one of my favorite books so far this year. I buddy read this with Mandy at Bookishly Mandy. I will link her channel down below as well. And we chose like the perfect breakdown of like how many chapters to read over how many days, because I feel like at the end of every day we left off on a cliffhanger. It was like, oh my gosh, like I want to keep reading. Like what just happened? Like what? I could not stop reading. Like I wanted to read this like in one day. I devoured this. It was so good. I loved this. I need to finish the series. I don't know why I haven't yet. Took me on a journey. It was, I was super invested in the story and the characters and what happened to them. So really enjoyed this. So that is the board game book tag. If you love board games and want to do this tag, like tag You Are It. It was a lot of fun. I will specifically tag a couple people. I will tag Eric at Break Even Books. He might have already been tagged in this. So if you have Eric, I'm sorry. And I will also tag Linda at Linda's World of Books. Let me know down below if you are a fan of board games. I highly recommend all of the games that I have played that are on this list. I'm sure Ticket to Ride is also a fun one. Like board games are such a fun way to pass time with friends. Like they're fun. So check out some of these board games. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy reading. Bye.